In 1979, The Facts of Life taught America how to grow up. By 2026, it teaches something far crueler, how time erases even the most beloved faces. Most of the cast is now tragically old, some are gone forever, and what happened after the laughter stopped is darker than anyone remembers. Charlotte Rae as Edna Garrett. Charlotte Rae, born April 22, 1926, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, was raised in a Jewish immigrant family shaped by discipline and perseverance. She was 53 years old when The Facts of Life premiered in 1979, becoming Edna Garrett, the firm but deeply caring housemother who gave the series its moral backbone. From her college years into her early 40s, Rae battled alcoholism, an addiction she later addressed openly in her memoir. Sobriety came only after decades of internal conflict. Her 25-year marriage to composer John Strauss ended in divorce when he revealed he was bisexual and sought an open marriage. Family and health weighed heavily on her adult life. Rae's son, Andy Strauss, was autistic, and she became his lifelong caregiver during a time when resources were scarce. In 1982, while starring on The Facts of Life and appearing on Different Strokes, she required a pacemaker, signaling early physical decline. The most devastating loss came later when Andy died suddenly at age 40 from a heart attack, a grief that permanently reshaped her final decades. Illness followed her relentlessly. In 2009, aware that pancreatic cancer had killed her mother, uncle, and sister, Rae was screened, diagnosed early, and survived 6 months of chemotherapy. But in 2017, at 91, she was diagnosed with bone cancer. Charlotte Rae died at her Los Angeles home on August 5, 2018, at 92 years old. Lisa Welchel as Blair Warner. Lisa Welchel, born May 29, 1963, in Littlefield, Texas, grew up far from Hollywood before being thrust into its spotlight at a young age. She was just 16 years old when The Facts of Life premiered in 1979, cast as Blair Warner, the wealthy, sharp-tongued queen bee whose confidence and privilege made her the show's most recognizable face. As the series grew into a cultural phenomenon, Welchel became inseparable from the character. When the show ended in 1988, Hollywood struggled to imagine her as anything else. Acting offers slowed, and rather than fight an industry eager to move on, Welchel quietly stepped away. In the early 1990s, she married Pastor Steve Caudle, embraced evangelical Christianity, and redirected her life toward faith-based work, writing and speaking, a decision that baffled fans who expected a seamless transition into adult stardom. Personal stability did not shield her from pain. After more than 2 decades of marriage and raising 3 children, Welchel divorced Caudle in 2012, publicly acknowledging years of emotional strain beneath the appearance of a perfect family. While she occasionally returned to television, including appearances on Survivor and reunion projects, the spotlight no longer felt permanent or safe. By 2026, Lisa Welchel is 63 years old. She lives largely out of Hollywood's center, focusing on writing, faith-centered projects, and selective appearances. Kim Fields as Tootie Ramsey. Born May 12, 1969, Kim Fields entered the world in New York City and stepped onto television sets before most children knew what fame meant. She was just 10 years old when The Facts of Life premiered in 1979, cast as Dorothy Tootie Ramsey, the youngest girl in the house, instantly lovable, and often treated as the show's emotional anchor. As the series ended and childhood applause faded, Fields struggled with depression and long-standing body image issues, pressures intensified by having her appearance scrutinized since preteen years. While she continued acting in projects like Living Single during the 1990s, the psychological weight of early fame never fully lifted. In 2015 to 2016, Fields joined The Real Housewives of Atlanta for a single season, a move that exposed her to a different kind of spotlight. Confrontational, unscripted, and unforgiving. Her clashes with castmate Kenya Moore, combined with accusations that she was too reserved or out of place, turned the experience into a widely discussed controversy. Rather than reviving her public image, the show reaffirmed what Fields had long felt. Constant visibility came at too high a personal cost. By 2026, Kim Fields is 57 years old. She works primarily behind the camera as a director and producer, appearing selectively and avoiding celebrity culture whenever possible. Mindy Cohn as Natalie Green. Mindy Cohn was born May 20th, 1966, in Los Angeles, California, was raised in the heart of the entertainment industry, yet never fit its conventional mold. She was 13 years old when The Facts of Life debuted in 1979, cast as Natalie Green, the sharp-witted, outspoken girl whose intelligence and humor made her one of the show's emotional standouts. After 1988, Mindy Cohn continued working steadily, most notably lending her voice to Velma Dinkley in Scooby-Doo for more than a decade, a role that quietly kept her relevant even as her on-screen appearances diminished. Still, Hollywood's fixation on youth and appearance gradually narrowed her opportunities, pushing her into a lower-profile career long before the public noticed her absence. The most devastating chapter of her life unfolded in silence. In 2012, Cohn was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. Rather than sharing the news, she chose isolation and privacy, undergoing treatment away from public view while continuing to work when possible. Chemotherapy, fear, and uncertainty became part of her daily existence, yet she refused sympathy or headlines. In 2017, after enduring years of treatment and uncertainty, Cohn finally revealed her illness publicly. The disclosure reframed her disappearance, transforming it from career decline into a story of survival fought quietly and deliberately. By 2026, Mindy Cohn is 60 years old, living privately and appearing selectively. Nancy McKeon as Joe Polniacek. Nancy McKeon, born April 4, 1966 in Westbury, New York, entered acting at a young age but didn't become a household name until adolescence. She was 13 years old when The Facts of Life introduced her in 1980 as Joe Polniacek, the tough, street-smart outsider whose rebellious edge reshaped the series and made her an instant fan favorite. Joe's strength mirrored McKeon's own intensity, but carrying that image came at a cost. Throughout the 1980s, she worked relentlessly, filming The Facts of Life while taking on TV movies that leaned into gritty, emotionally demanding roles such as Poison Ivy and The Wrong Woman. As the series ended and Hollywood tastes shifted, McKeon found herself exhausted rather than ambitious, increasingly resistant to the machinery of fame. In the 1990s and 2000s, she made a deliberate choice that surprised many, stepping away from the spotlight. Marriage, motherhood, and family responsibilities became priorities, especially as she navigated personal stress and the emotional toll of years spent growing up under constant scrutiny. Occasional roles followed, but never at the pace or intensity of her early career. In 2025, she returned to the stage with an off-Broadway debut in Pen Pals in New York, later reprising the role that summer. By 2026, Nancy McKeon is 60 years old, and she lives a largely private life in New York with her husband and 2 daughters. Mackenzie Astin as Andy Moffat. Born May 12, 1973 in Los Angeles, California, Mackenzie Astin grew up inside Hollywood royalty, yet never enjoyed its protection. He was just 12 years old when The Facts of Life brought him in as Andy Moffat in the mid-1980s, a likable, sensitive boy meant to soften the show's later seasons and attract a younger audience. When The Facts of Life abruptly dropped his character, he later admitted the decision came without warning, leaving him feeling discarded and deeply hurt. Roles followed, but inconsistently, and none carried the visibility or stability of Andy. The most traumatic turning point came during the filming of The Evening Star in 1996. Astin was involved in a serious car accident that tore off the upper portion of his right ear. Rather than halt production, he continued filming using a prosthetic ear carefully matched to earlier scenes, hiding a life-altering injury behind the illusion of continuity. Emotionally exhausted, Astin stepped back from acting for periods, openly expressing frustration with Hollywood politics and its disposability of young performers. Instead of chasing diminishing roles, he redirected his creativity inward, writing, producing, and starring in his own Super 8 films, reclaiming control over storytelling when the system no longer offered him a place. By 2026, Mackenzie Astin is 53 years old, appearing occasionally on television, but living largely outside the spotlight. George Clooney as George Burnett. George Clooney was born May 6, 1961, in Lexington, Kentucky. He was 24 years old when he appeared on The Facts of Life in 1985 as George Burnett, a charming handyman boyfriend, a small recurring role that briefly hinted at leading man potential. Throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s, Clooney bounced between short-lived TV shows and forgotten films, including The Return of the Killer Tomatoes and Red Surf, projects that failed to gain traction. Each cancellation reset his career to zero. By his early 30s, Hollywood had labeled him almost, a dangerous place where many actors disappear. The pressure compounded with personal instability. Clooney's early marriage collapsed quickly, reinforcing his growing cynicism about fame and permanence. Rejection became routine. Auditions grew scarcer, and the optimism that once followed his Facts of Life role faded into survival mode. It wasn't until 1994, nearly a decade after George Burnett, that ER finally cracked open the door, rescuing him from the edge of obscurity at an age when many actors are already written off. By 2026, George Clooney is 65 years old, one of Hollywood's most powerful actor-directors, producers, and public figures. Julie Piekarski as Sue Ann Weaver. Julie Piekarski, born January 2, 1963, in St. Louis, Missouri. She was 16 years old when The Facts of Life premiered in 1979, cast as Sue Ann Weaver, the sweet, well-mannered girl whose gentle presence contrasted sharply with the stronger personalities around her. That gentleness proved to be a liability. In 1980, as producers decided to radically restructure the series around a smaller core group, Piekarski was abruptly written out after the first season. Years later, she admitted feeling a deep sense of loss, struggling to understand how a role that felt stable and promising could vanish so quickly. She shifted priorities, choosing family and stability over chasing uncertain roles, a decision that brought peace, but not immunity from pain. After 31 years of marriage, Piekarski divorced in 2017, describing the experience as something she had never truly imagined would happen to her. By 2026, Julie Piekarski is 63 years old and lives a quiet life outside the entertainment industry, having long stepped away from acting to focus on her personal and professional pursuits beyond Hollywood. John Lawlor as Stephen Bradley. John Lawlor, born June 5, 1941, in Troy, New York. He was 38 years old when The Facts of Life premiered in 1979, cast as Stephen Bradley, the calm, principled male teacher and the only regular adult male lead in the show's original concept. At the beginning, Stephen Bradley was meant to balance Edna Garrett, offering authority without aggression and guidance without sentimentality. But as ratings wavered, the series underwent a major creative overhaul. The focus narrowed to a smaller group of girls, and Lawlor's character was quietly written out. For Lawlor, it marked the beginning of professional invisibility rather than evolution. After The Facts of Life, his career slowed into sporadic appearances across television, never again finding a role with similar stability or visibility. Unlike actors who pivoted into reinvention, Lawlor gradually stepped away, his name fading as the industry moved toward younger faces and faster rhythms. There were no scandals, no public breakdowns, only the slow disappearance that comes when momentum stops and never restarts. John Lawlor died in Albuquerque, New Mexico, on February 13, 2025, at 83 years old. Cloris Leachman as Beverly Ann Stickle. Cloris Leachman, born April 30, 1926, in Des Moines, Iowa, arrived in the facts of life as a veteran of stage and screen whose career already spanned decades. She was 63 years old when she joined the series in 1988 as Beverly Ann Stickle, the sharp-tongued, unconventional caretaker brought in to replace Edna Garrett during the show's final years. Long before The Facts of Life, she had won an Academy Award for The Last Picture Show and later dominated television comedy with The Mary Tyler Moore Show and Phyllis. Yet even as accolades accumulated, her private life was unraveling. The deepest wound came in 1986, when her son Brian was found dead at age 30 in a YMCA room in Manhattan. Reports cited a fatal overdose, possibly involving prescription medication for ulcers. The loss shattered Leachman, leaving a grief she never dramatized publicly but carried for the rest of her life. In the years following Brian's death, Leachman appeared relentlessly across film and television, using performance as both discipline and distraction. Roles in Raising Hope, Malcolm in the Middle, and countless guest appearances turned her into a late-career phenomenon, admired for fearlessness and stamina well into old age. Beneath the humor, however, was a woman outrunning silence, refusing to let personal tragedy slow her down. Cloris Leachman died at her home in Encinitas, California, on January 27, 2021, at 94 years old. The cause was a stroke, with COVID-19 listed as a contributing factor. More than 4 decades after The Facts of Life first aired, the laughter feels familiar. But the lives behind it tell a far heavier story. Time aged them, illness broke some of them, and a few were taken long before they ever had a chance to grow old. Which story stayed with you the longest? Share your thoughts below, and follow along as we continue uncovering the untold truths behind television's most beloved shows.